Hey, everyone. Let me tell you about a super fun day that turned into something wild. It all started on a sunny Saturday afternoon in my little neighborhood. The sky was blue, the sun was shining, and everything felt just right. I could smell yummy burgers and hot dogs cooking on my grill. The delicious smell floated all around, making everyone hungry. Soft music played from my little speaker, and my friends were laughing and talking in the backyard. It was the perfect day for a barbecue party, and I was so excited to be there with everyone. My name's Jake. I'm just a regular guy who loves throwing BBQs. I like flipping burgers, eating good food, and hanging out with my buddies. That day, my backyard was full of people having fun. Kids were running around, grown ups were chatting, and everyone had big smiles on their faces. The burgers were sizzling, the hot dogs were ready, and I even had a big bowl of chips on the table. It was awesome. Well, almost awesome. There was one person who wasn't happy at all. And her name was Karen. Karen lived right across the street from me. She wasn't like the rest of us who just wanted to have a good time. Nope, Karen was different. She was the queen of the HOA, that's the group that makes rules for our neighborhood. Karen loved those rules more than anything. She'd walk around with a clipboard in her hands, looking at everything like she was the boss of the world. She'd tell people what to do all the time. No loud music, she'd yell. Or, your grass can't be taller than 3 inches. She even told my neighbor Tim once that his dog barked too much. Can you believe that? A dog can't bark in its own yard? That's crazy. Anyway, Karen was always watching us. Every time I looked out my window, I'd see her standing there, staring at my house like a hawk. You know how hawks watch little mice from way up in the sky? That's how Karen was. She'd squint her eyes and write stuff down on her clipboard. I didn't know what she was writing, but it made me feel funny. Like she was waiting for me to do something wrong. My friends thought she was annoying, but we didn't pay much attention to her most days. We'd just roll our eyes and keep doing what we were doing. Oh, that's just Karen being Karen, we'd say, and then we'd laugh about it. But that Saturday? Oh boy, that Saturday was different. Karen didn't know it yet, but something big was about to happen. Something she never saw coming. See, I was in my backyard, flipping burgers like a pro. The music was playing not too loud, just nice and soft. My friends were telling jokes and eating snacks. Everything was perfect. I looked around and thought, this is the best day ever. The sun was warm on my face, the food smelled so good, and everyone was happy. I grabbed a soda from the cooler and took a big sip. Life was great. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. Karen. She was standing on her front porch, watching us again. Her arms were crossed, and she had that grumpy look on her face. You know the look like when your teacher catches you passing notes in class? Yeah, that one. I tried to ignore her. She's just being nosy, I told myself. She'll go away soon. But deep down, I had a funny feeling. Like maybe she wasn't going to let this day be easy. Maybe she had a plan. What do you think Karen was up to? Any guesses? I bet you're curious, right? Let me paint the picture for you. My backyard isn't huge, but it's big enough for a good party. I had a table set up with red cups and a big jug of lemonade. The grill was hot, and smoke was puffing up into the air. My buddy Tim was tossing a football with his little brother. My neighbor Sarah was sitting in a chair, eating a hot dog and laughing at something funny. Kids were chasing each other, giggling like crazy. It was loud, but not too loud. Just happy noise. The kind of noise that makes you feel alive. Across the street, Karen's house looked quiet. Too quiet. Her windows were dark, and her front yard was perfect. Not a single blade of grass was out of place. She always bragged about how neat her house was. I follow the rules, she'd say, pointing her nose in the air. Everyone else should, too. But that day, I didn't care about her rules. I was having fun, and so were my friends. We weren't hurting anyone. We were just eating, laughing, and enjoying the sunshine. Still, Karen kept watching. I could feel her eyes on us, like little lasers. I turned to my friend Mike and said, "Look at her over there. What's her problem?" Mike peeked over the fence and grinned. "She's just mad because she's not invited," he joked. We both laughed. But then I thought, maybe she's really mad. Maybe she's going to do something. I didn't know what, but I had a hunch. Karen wasn't the type to just sit there and do nothing. She liked being in charge. She liked telling people what to do. And a barbecue party? To her, that was probably a big no-no. So there I was, standing by the grill, flipping a burger. The meat hissed as it hit the hot metal. I smiled at my friends and waved to Sarah. "Who wants another hot dog?" I called out. Everyone cheered. It felt so good to see them happy. But then I glanced across the street again. Karen wasn't on her porch anymore. Where did she go? My stomach did a little flip. Not a scared flip, just a that's weird flip. I shrugged it off and kept cooking. She's probably inside complaining to herself, I thought. No big deal. Little did I know, Karen wasn't just complaining. She was up to something. Something big. And it was going to turn my perfect barbecue day into a story no one would forget. What do you think she was planning? Was she going to yell at us? Call someone? Or maybe something even crazier? Stick with me, because this gets good. I promise you won't believe what happens next. Have you ever had a neighbor like Karen? Someone who's always watching and making trouble? Tell me about it, I want to know. Let's see if your guess about Karen is right. Ready for more? Here we go. Okay, so my barbecue party was going great. The sun was shining, the food was cooking, and everyone was having fun. The burgers were sizzling on the grill, and my little Bluetooth speaker was playing happy songs. Not too loud, just loud enough to make us smile. My friends were eating chips, drinking lemonade, and telling silly stories. Kids were running around the backyard, laughing and chasing each other. It was a perfect day, and I was flipping burgers like a pro. I felt so happy standing there with my spatula in my hand. But then, trouble showed up and her name was Karen. Karen lived across the street, and she was the bossy HOA lady who loved rules. She hated anything fun, and my party? Oh, she didn't like that one bit. The party was in full swing when I saw her coming. She marched over to my yard like she owned the place. Her shoes clicked on the sidewalk, and her face looked super mad. She had her phone in her hand, holding it up like a weapon. I watched her get closer, and my stomach did a tiny twist. Not because I was scared, but because I knew she was about to make a big fuss. "This noise is unacceptable," she yelled when she got to my fence. She pointed at my little speaker like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. It was sitting on the picnic table, playing a happy song about summer. To me, it sounded nice, but to Karen? Nope. She acted like it was a giant monster roaring in her ears. "I'm calling 911 if you don't shut this down right now," she snapped. Her voice was loud and sharp, like a teacher scolding a kid for talking in class. My buddies heard her and started to chuckle. My friend Tim, who was tossing a football, looked at me and grinned. My other friend Mike, who was eating a hot dog, almost choked because he was laughing so hard. I just shrugged my shoulders and tried to stay calm. "Karen," I said, nice and easy, "it's 3 p.m. on a Saturday. Relax a little." I didn't yell or get mad. I just wanted her to chill out. It wasn't even dark outside. The sun was still up, kids were playing, and we weren't hurting anyone. But Karen? She didn't want to hear it. Her face turned super red, redder than the ketchup bottle sitting on my table. She looked like a tomato about to pop. Her eyes got all squinty, and her mouth twisted into a grumpy frown. "You kids are so disrespectful," she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. "Rules are rules, and you're breaking them." She waved her phone around like she was ready to call the cops right then and there. My friends kept giggling, and I just stood there, holding my spatula, watching her freak out. I thought it was kind of funny, but also kind of annoying. Why couldn't she just let us have fun? Karen didn't wait for me to say anything else. She turned around and stormed off, her shoes stomping on the ground. She marched back across the street to her house, muttering stuff under her breath. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught bits like "noisy kids" and "I'll show them." She looked so mad, like a cartoon character with steam coming out of her ears. My buddy Tim walked over and said, "She's nuts, Jake. What's her deal?" I shrugged again. "She's just Karen," I said. She'll probably complain to the HOA like always. See, Karen loved complaining. Every time something happened in the neighborhood, she'd call the HOA people. If someone's grass was too long, she'd tattle. If a kid rode a bike too fast, she'd write it down on her clipboard. She was like a detective, but for silly stuff that didn't really matter. I figured this time would be the same. She'd call her HOA friends, tell them about my loud party, and they'd send me a letter saying, "Keep it down next time." No big deal, right? That's what I thought. So I turned back to my grill and flipped another burger. The party kept going, and we all tried to forget about her. But here's the thing, I didn't know something big was already happening. Trouble was brewing, and it wasn't just for me. Karen thought she was the smartest person around, always pointing fingers at everyone else. She acted like she was perfect and we were all bad. But something was sneaky going on with her, and I had no clue yet. My friends didn't know either. We were too busy eating and laughing to think about it. The music played, the kids shouted, and the sun kept shining. Everything seemed fine. But Karen's little tantrum. It was just the start. Have you ever had someone overreact like that? Like, get super mad over something tiny? Maybe a teacher yelled at you for whispering, or a grown-up got upset because you laughed too loud. It's weird, right? What would you have done if you were me? Would you have told Karen to go away? Or maybe just ignored her like I did? I bet you've got some fun stories about bossy people. I'd love to hear them. Anyway, I thought Karen was done for the day. I thought she'd go inside, call her HOA buddies, and that'd be it. But nope. She had a plan, and it was about to make everything crazy. As she walked away, I saw her tapping on her phone. I figured she was texting someone or getting ready to call 911 like she said. Let her try, I thought. The cops won't care about a little barbecue. I mean, it's not like we were robbing a bank or anything. We were just eating burgers and having fun. I shook my head and smiled at my friends. She's so dramatic, I said. They nodded, and we all went back to the party. The smell of food filled the air again, and I grabbed a chip from the bowl. Life was good, or so I thought. What I didn't know was that Karen's big fuss was about to bounce right back at her. She thought she could boss us around and ruin our day, but something else was cooking. Not burgers, not hot dogs, but trouble. Big trouble. And it was headed straight for her, not me. How wild is that? Stick with me, because this story's about to get even better. What do you think happened next? Any ideas? Let's find out together. So, my barbecue party was still rocking about an hour after Karen's big fuss. The sun was still up, shining bright, and the smell of burgers filled the air. I was having the best time flipping food on the grill, and my friends were munching on chips and hot dogs. The little speaker played happy tunes, and kids were giggling as they ran around the backyard. Everything felt awesome, like nothing could go wrong. But then, something weird happened. I saw flashing lights, red and blue, coming down the street. My heart did a little jump. Whoa, what's that? I thought. I looked closer and saw two cop cars rolling up. Not fast, like in a chase, but slow and steady. And guess what? They didn't stop at my house. Nope, they parked right in front of Karen's place across the street. My buddies noticed too. We all stopped what we were doing. Burgers. Forgotten. Chips. Left on the table. We crept over to the fence to peek, quiet as mice. What's going on? My friend Tim whispered in my ear. His eyes were big, like he couldn't believe it. I shrugged. I don't know, I whispered back. But let's watch. The cops got out of their cars, two of them, wearing dark uniforms and serious faces. They walked up to Karen's front door, their boots tapping on her perfect sidewalk. I could see them through the fence slats, and my tummy felt all wiggly. Not scared, just curious. Like when you're about to open a surprise gift and don't know what's inside. My friend Mike sneaked up next to me. Are they here for your party? He asked, munching a chip. No way, I said. They're at her house. We kept staring, trying to figure it out. Then Karen's door swung open, and there she was. She stepped out onto her porch, looking all smug and proud. You know that face, like when someone thinks they're about to win a game? That's how she looked. Her arms started waving around, and she pointed right at my yard. "That party's out of control," she yelled, loud enough for us to hear across the street. "Do your job," she told the cops, her voice sharp and bossy. I bet she thought they were there to shut my barbecue down. She probably called them herself after stomping off earlier, thinking she'd get me in trouble. Ha! I almost laughed out loud. But here's the funny part: the cops didn't even look my way. Not once. They didn't turn their heads toward my yard or my little speaker or my friends. Nothing. One of the officers, he was tall with a big hat, stepped closer to Karen. He said something to her, but his voice was low. Too low for me to hear. Whatever it was, it hit her like a bucket of cold water. Her smug face froze. Her mouth stopped moving, and her arms dropped to her sides. She just stood there, staring at the cop like she'd seen a ghost. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my bones. "What's happening?" Tim whispered again, tugging my sleeve. "SHH, I said, "I don't know yet." My eyes were glued to Karen and the cops. My friends crowded around me, peeking over the fence too. Even the kids stopped running and came over, curious. "Are the police mad at her?" little Sarah asked, holding a half-eaten hot dog. "Maybe," I said, "but let's wait and see." My mind was racing. Why were the cops at her house? She was the one yelling about rules all the time. She acted like she was perfect. So what was going on? I thought back to earlier, when Karen marched over to my yard. She'd been so mad about the music and the noise. "I'm calling 911, she'd said, waving her phone like a crazy person. I figured she'd done it, called the cops to tattle on us. But if that was true, why weren't they talking to me? Why were they at her door, looking all serious? My buddy Mike nudged me. "Maybe she called them, but they don't care about us," he said. "Maybe," I replied, scratching my head. "But her face, she looks weird. Like she's scared." Karen wasn't yelling anymore. She wasn't pointing or bossing anyone around. She just stood there, frozen, while the cops talked to her. The second officer pulled out a little notebook and started writing stuff down. The tall one kept talking, his hands on his hips. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but it didn't look good for Karen. Her red face from before? Now it was turning pale, like she'd run out of steam. I couldn't help but wonder, what had she done? Something sneaky? Something bad? Why were the cops here for her instead of me? My friends were buzzing with ideas. "Maybe she stole something," Tim said, his eyes wide. "Or maybe she's in big trouble with the HOA," Mike added, grinning. "What if she's a secret bad guy?" little Sarah piped up, giggling. I laughed too, but inside, I was super curious. Karen always acted like she was better than everyone. She'd strut around with her clipboard, telling us what to do. "No loud music. Cut your grass. Blah, blah, blah." But now, she didn't look so tough. She looked worried. And that made me think maybe she wasn't as perfect as she pretended. The party behind me got quiet. Everyone was watching Karen's house now. The music still played, but no one was dancing or eating. We were all too busy staring. The cops didn't leave. They stayed on her porch, talking and writing. Karen's hands started to shake a little. I could see it from where I stood. "Something's up," I whispered to Tim. "Yeah," he said, "but what?" I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew one thing: this wasn't about my barbecue anymore. This was about Karen. And whatever she'd done, it was big enough to bring 2 cop cars to her door. I couldn't stop wondering. What had Karen done to get the police on her porch? Was it something silly, like her yelling at us? Or something way bigger? My tummy did that wiggly thing again, but now it was excitement, not nerves. I wanted to know the truth. Have you ever seen something weird like that happen? Like when someone bossy gets caught doing something they shouldn't. What do you think Karen did? I bet you're dying to find out, right? Well, hang on, because this story's about to get even wilder. Let's keep going and see what happens next. Okay, things were getting wild at my barbecue party, and we were all glued to the fence, watching Karen's house across the street. The cops were there, talking to her, and she was still acting all smug, like she was in charge. My friends and I were whispering, trying to guess what was happening. The sun was still up, the burgers were cold now, and my little speaker kept playing music nobody was listening to. Everyone's eyes were on Karen and those two police officers on her porch. Then, something huge happened, something none of us saw coming. Karen was holding her phone, tapping away at it like she was about to call someone. I figured she was dialing 911, just like she'd threatened earlier when she yelled at me about my party. She probably wanted to tattle on us again, saying our music was too loud or whatever. Her finger was on the screen, and she had that bossy look on her face, like she was about to win. But right then, the tall cop, the one with the big hat, held up his hand. "Ma'am," he said, loud and clear, "put the phone down." Karen stopped. She looked confused, like she didn't get it. Then he said the big thing, "We're not here for them. We're here for you." Whoa. My jaw dropped all the way to the ground. I couldn't believe my ears. My buddies gasped too. Tim grabbed my arm, and Mike's eyes got huge. Karen's mouth fell open, just like mine. She stood there, frozen, her phone still in her hand. The smug look. Gone. Poof. She didn't know what to say, and neither did I. The cop wasn't talking about my barbecue. He wasn't there to shut down my party. He was there for Karen. What? This was nuts. My heart started beating fast, not from being scared, but from being so shocked. What was going on? The tall cop reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. He held it up so Karen could see it. "This is a warrant," he said, his voice serious. "A warrant? That's like a special note that says the police can grab someone if they did something bad." I'd seen stuff like that on TV, but never in real life. My friends leaned closer to the fence, trying to hear everything. "What's a warrant?" little Sarah whispered. "It means she's in trouble," I whispered back. "Big trouble, I bet." "But what kind?" I couldn't wait to find out. Turns out, Karen wasn't as perfect as she acted. The cop started talking, and we all listened hard. He said neighbors had been telling on her for months. Months. Can you believe it? She'd been doing sneaky, bad stuff behind everyone's backs. First, she was dumping trash where she wasn't supposed to, like throwing junk in other people's yards or secret spots. That's against the rules, big time. Second, she was making up fake fines. She'd tell people, "You owe money because your grass is too long," or "Pay me because your dog barked." But those fines weren't real, she just wanted cash for herself. And get this, she even sneaked into people's yards at night to inspect things. Like a spy. She'd creep around with her clipboard, looking at stuff that wasn't her business. My buddy Tim whispered, "She came to my yard once. Said my bike was too loud." We all giggled, but it wasn't funny to the neighbors who'd caught her. They were mad, and they told the police everything. Karen thought she could boss us all around, but she was the one breaking rules, big, huge ones. Here's the wildest part, the HOA didn't even know the half of it. Karen was supposed to collect money from everyone to help the neighborhood, like for fixing streets or planting flowers. It's called dues. But instead of giving that money to the HOA, she kept it. She stuffed it in her pockets like a sneaky thief. All those times she yelled at us about rules, she was stealing from us. My jaw dropped again. I mean, how sneaky can you get? While she was busy judging my barbecue and pointing fingers, the cops were already on her trail, figuring out all her tricks. Karen's face went white like a piece of paper. She didn't look mad anymore. She looked scared. "You can't do this," she screeched, her voice all high and shaky. She waved her arms like a crazy bird, trying to stop them. But the cops? They didn't care. The tall one pulled out handcuffs, shiny metal bracelets that lock your hands together. The other cop grabbed her arm, nice but firm. "Yes, we can," he said. Click. The cuffs went on her wrists, and she couldn't wiggle free. My friends cheered quietly behind the fence. "Whoa," Mike said. "She's busted." I couldn't believe it. Karen, the HOA queen who loved telling everyone what to do, was getting arrested. Right there on her perfect porch. She'd come to my yard earlier, yelling about my music, threatening to call 911. And now, the cops were taking her away. How's that for a twist? I almost laughed out loud. My barbecue wasn't the problem, she was. All this time, she acted like she was better than us, but she was the one in trouble. Big, giant, handcuff trouble. The cops started walking her to the car. She kept yelling, "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything." But nobody believed her. Not the cops, not me, not my friends. We'd all seen her be mean and bossy, but now we knew the truth, she was sneaky too. The tall cop opened the car door, and the other one helped her sit in the back. Her fancy shoes scraped the ground, and her perfect hair got all messy. Little Sarah clapped her hands. "She's going to jail," she said, giggling. "Maybe," I said, grinning. "She deserves it." My heart was racing with excitement. This was better than any movie. Karen thought she could ruin my party, but instead, she ruined herself. All those months of being a bully, stealing money, and breaking rules caught up with her. And it happened right when she tried to get me in trouble. How funny is that? My friends high-fived each other, and I just stood there, amazed. The cops shut the car door, and Karen's face peeked out the window, looking mad and scared all at once. What a day. I couldn't stop thinking, how did she think she'd get away with all that? Sneaking around, lying, stealing. She must have thought she was super smart. But nope, the neighbors and the cops figured her out. And now, she was caught. Have you ever seen someone get what they deserve like that? Someone who's mean and then bam, they're in trouble? It's wild, right? Stick with me, because this story's not over yet. What do you think happens next? Let's find out together. Wow, things got crazy fast at my barbecue party. The cops had just put Karen in their car, her hands stuck in shiny handcuffs. She didn't look like the bossy HOA queen anymore. Nope, she looked mad and messy as they hauled her away. Her shouts bounced down the street, loud and wild, like, "Let me go. This is wrong." But the cops didn't listen. They shut the car door with a big thud, and off they went, red and blue lights flashing as they drove her out of sight. My jaw was still on the ground, but I couldn't help smiling. What a turn. Back at my yard, the party changed quick. It wasn't quiet anymore, oh no. My friends started cheering, loud and happy. "Woohoo!" Tim yelled, throwing his hands up. "She's gone!" Mike shouted, jumping like he'd won a prize. Even little Sarah clapped and giggled, "Bye-bye, mean lady." The kids ran around again, laughing harder than before. Me. I grabbed my spatula and flipped a burger, grinning big. The music from my little speaker got louder too, not because I turned it up, but because everyone was singing along now. Our party wasn't ruined, it was better than ever. Turns out, the whole neighborhood was so done with Karen. Like, fed up done. As soon as the cop car was gone, people started coming over to my yard. Not just my buddies, but neighbors I barely knew. They were all talking at once, spilling stories about Karen like water out of a bucket. Old Mr. Jenkins, he's this nice guy with white hair who lives 2 houses down, shuffled over with his cane. "She bullied me for months," he said, shaking his head. "Told me I owed fake fines for my flowers being too bright. I paid her because I was scared. Can you believe that? Picking on an old guy like him. That's low." Then Mrs. Carter, who's got 3 kids, chimed in. "She scared my boys all the time," she said, her arms crossed. "They'd ride their bikes, and she'd yell they were going too fast. Said she'd fine me if they didn't stop. I told her bikes aren't against the rules, but she wouldn't listen." Her little boy Joey nodded. "She was mean," he said, kicking a rock. Story after story came out. Karen had been bossing everyone forever. She'd knock on doors, wave her clipboard, and make up stuff to scare people. And all this time, we thought she was just annoying. Nope, she was way worse. With Karen gone, it felt like a giant weight lifted off our street. You know that heavy feeling when you're carrying a big backpack all day? Then you take it off and so light. That's how it was. People smiled more. Kids played louder. Even the air felt fresher, like the sun was happier too. My barbecue turned into a big neighborhood party now. Neighbors brought over chips and sodas to share. Mr. Jenkins sat in a chair, eating a hot dog and laughing with us. Mrs. Carter's kids tossed a ball with Tim. It was awesome, like we were all free from Karen's grumpy rules. The next day, something cool happened. I woke up, grabbed my phone, and saw an email from the HOA. It popped up on my screen with a little ding. I opened it, And guess what? They were investigating Karen's side business. That's what they called it, her sneaky stealing. The email said they'd found out she was keeping the dues money, the cash we all paid to make the neighborhood nice. She didn't use it for flowers or fixing stuff like she was supposed to. Nope, she stuffed it in her pockets. The HOA promised to check everything and get our money back. Good riddance, I said out loud, grinning at my phone. Back at the grill that afternoon, I couldn't resist cooking more burgers. I thought about it all. Karen had been so mean, so sneaky, and now she was caught. Me. I just flipped another burger and smiled. The sizzle sounded like victory. Karma showed up right on time, like a surprise guest at the party. You know karma? It's when someone does bad stuff, and then bad stuff happens to them. That's what happened to Karen. She tried to ruin my fun, but she ruined herself instead. And man, it felt good, like the best burger I'd ever tasted, hot off the grill. My friends came over again that day, and we talked about it. She deserved it, Tim said, munching a chip. Totally, Mike agreed, sipping a soda. She was a bully. Little Sarah ran up with a big smile. Is she in jail forever? She asked. I laughed. Maybe not forever, I said, but she's in big trouble now. We all nodded. The neighborhood felt safer without her stomping around, yelling about rules she didn't even follow herself. It was like we could breathe again, play again, live again. I started thinking about all the stuff Karen did, bullying Mr. Jenkins, scaring kids, stealing money. She acted like she was the queen, but she was more like a sneaky fox, tricking everyone. And now, the cops took her away, the HOA was on her case, and we were free. Justice got served, hot and fresh, just like my barbecue food. It made me happy to see everyone smiling, sharing stories, and eating together. Karen couldn't boss us anymore, and that was the best part of all. What do you think Karen deserved after all that? I bet you've got ideas. Did she deserve to get caught? To lose her HOA job? Maybe even say sorry to everyone? I'd love to hear what you think. For me, watching her get hauled off felt perfect. She'd been mean for so long, and now she had to face it. My spatula flipped another burger, and I took a big bite. Yum, justice tasted amazing. The party kept going, the sun kept shining, and we all knew one thing: Karen's grumpy days were done. Have you ever seen a bully get what's coming to them? Like when someone's mean and then bam, they're in trouble. It's pretty cool, right? That's what happened here. The neighborhood was ours again, and I couldn't stop grinning. Stick with me, because this story's got one more fun part left. What's your favorite thing about seeing justice happen? Let's chat about it. The sun was going down, painting the sky all orange and pink over my backyard. My barbecue party was winding down, but it still felt so good. The grill was warm, the burgers were gone, and my friends were sitting around, chatting and laughing. Empty soda cans and chip bags were scattered on the table, and the little speaker played soft music as the day turned to night. I leaned against the fence, watching the last bit of sunlight disappear, and I couldn't stop thinking about everything that happened with Karen. What a wild day. It made me feel big things, and I want to share them with you. As that sun set, I thought, sometimes, the people who act the loudest have the most to hide. Karen was like that. She was always yelling, pointing her clipboard, telling us what to do. No loud music. Cut your grass. She acted like she was the boss of everyone, stomping around like she owned the whole street. Her voice was big, her rules were bigger, and she made sure we all heard her. But guess what? All that loud stuff was just a trick. She was hiding sneaky secrets, stealing money, bullying people, breaking rules. The louder she got, the more she had to cover up. Funny, right? In the end, Karen got caught in her own game. She thought she could boss us forever, scare us with fake fines, and sneak around like a fox. She even tried to ruin my barbecue by calling the cops. But life flipped it all around. The cops didn't come for me, they came for her. They caught her with a warrant, put those shiny handcuffs on her, and took her away. Her loud voice didn't help her then. Her clipboard didn't save her. She tripped over her own tricks, and everyone saw the truth. It's like a big ha, from the world: don't be mean, because it'll come back to bite you. It's so funny how life works, isn't it? Karen was loud and pushy, but the quiet ones like me and my grill just kept going. I didn't yell back when she came to my yard. I didn't fight or make a fuss. I just shrugged, said, relax, and flipped my burgers. My friends laughed, we ate, and we had fun. We didn't need to be loud or mean to win. We just kept doing our thing, cooking, and smiling, while Karen got herself in trouble. She fell over her own feet, and we didn't even have to lift a finger. That's pretty cool, I think. So here's what I learned, and I hope you take it with you too. Next time someone tries to ruin your fun, just smile and wait. Maybe it's a bully at school yelling at you. Maybe it's a grumpy grown-up saying you can't play. Don't get mad or scared, just keep being you. Keep laughing, keep playing, keep flipping your burgers or whatever you love to do. The truth has a way of showing up when you least expect it. Karen didn't see those cops coming. She didn't think her secrets would spill out. But they did, and she couldn't stop it. Truth always finds a way, like the sun coming up after a long night. I stood there by my grill, watching the stars pop out in the sky, and I felt strong. Not because I'm big or loud, but because I saw how life works. Bad people don't always win. Meanies like Karen might seem tough for a while, but they can't hide forever. The neighborhood was happy again, Mr. Jenkins was smiling, kids were riding bikes, and we all felt free. That's what happens when truth wins. It's like a big, warm hug from the world, saying, don't worry, good stuff comes back around. What's your takeaway from this wild ride? That's what I want to know. What did this story make you think about? Maybe it's how bullies don't always get their way. Or maybe it's how being quiet and kind can be stronger than being loud and mean. For me, it's all about waiting for the truth. I didn't have to fight Karen, I just kept cooking, and she fell all by herself. It makes me feel good, like I can handle anything if I stay calm and keep going. What about you? What stuck with you the most? Let me know down below, I can't wait to hear from you. Tell me your ideas, your stories, anything. Have you ever seen a loud person get caught like Karen? Or maybe you've got a time when you stayed quiet and won. I bet you've got some awesome thoughts. This day started with burgers and ended with justice, and it taught me a lot. Life's funny that way, it surprises you when you're just trying to have a good time. So next time someone's mean, think of me and my grill. Smile, wait, and watch the truth show up. It always does. As the night got dark, I turned off my grill and picked up a soda can. My friends waved goodbye, and the yard got quiet. But I wasn't sad, it felt peaceful. Karen was gone, the neighborhood was ours again, and I knew something big: being good and patient beats being loud and sneaky every time. That's my big lesson. What's yours? Drop it below, and let's talk. This wild barbecue story is done, but I've got more fun stuff coming. Stick around, okay? You're the best part of this adventure.